is to meet. Okay. Let me. So again, I'm Lynn Broaddus, President of WEF, and I want to welcome you to the annual meeting, annual business meeting of the membership. And one of the ways that this meeting is different from all the many other meetings that we have is that this meeting is specifically called out in the bylaws to be the meeting of the membership, and any member is welcome to come. We typically have this meeting at WEFTEC, or as it's referred to in the bylaws, the annual meeting, but it's not a requirement. And so I think we've found that by meeting online, that gives an opportunity for everyone to attend. There are certainly benefits to that. And I'm glad that you are all here with us. I just want to kind of start by saying what a pleasure it's been over this past year to work with Nikita, as well as the delegates as a whole, as we've tackled a number of different things this year. And early in Nikita's leadership, she invited me in to work with her on establishing your all's priorities, as well as making appointments to the various WEF board committees. And I think pretty much every WEF board committee has delegates on it. And I think that those the work of those committees and the experiences and the outputs are richer because of the delegates' interaction there. And as you probably know, the speaker this year, Nikita, attends the WEF board meetings and participates in them. And I just want to say thank you to Nikita for her engagement this year and her participation. Her reflections definitely enriched our conversations, and I think made our outcomes better as a result. So thank you, Nikita. It's no small amount of work to add to the workload of being the speaker. Really appreciate that. And I certainly want to also thank those of you who have been served on those WEF board committees, whether it's the Nominating Committee, the Finance Committee, the Strategic Advisory Committee, WEFTEC Advisory Committee, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Subcommittee, you name it, everything. And I know there are others. Everything has delegates on that committee, those committees, and we really appreciate that. Today's agenda is pretty straightforward. Our goals are to provide a high-level overview on board activities and volunteer accomplishments from the past year, deliver a financial update on how the organization is doing and its projections into the future, as well as to understand WEF's priorities for the months ahead. So let's get started. And I was asked to speak about the state of the Federation. So Kelsey, if you could share the slides now, that would be great. Yeah. So anyways, here we are at the WEF business meeting. So if we could advance to the next slide. I can sum up pretty simply. WEF's future is bright. I hope you guys all have sunglasses nearby, because you're going to need them for the year ahead. And we could leave it there, but I think there's an expectation that maybe we drill into a little bit more detail than that. In a few minutes, you're going to hear from Keith Hobson. Keith, I see you there, our WEF's treasurer. And as you're going to see from Keith's presentation, WEF's financial position is very strong. We have weathered this pandemic very well. There probably will be some bumps in the year ahead, but we have the reserves to be the shock absorbers on that trip. And that's thanks to years of work and professionalism, both on the staff and volunteers' parts. Following Keith, WEF's Executive Director, Walt Marlowe, will give you an overview of activities more from a programmatic level. And I'll just say in advance, there's so much going on at WEF, especially from a staff level, that he can't possibly tell you everything, but we'll look forward to seeing what he's able to squeeze in there. And then later during the HOD meeting, the second HOD meeting, the one that's focused on the year to come, President-Elect Jamie Eichenberger is going to drill in a bit more on the work of the strategic plan that's going to be a big part of this year to come. Next slide. But before I reflect on kind of what the board accomplishments have been over this past year, I want to just, I share this slide sort of in jest, but one of the things that I have learned over the year is that WEF is very much like this proverbial elephant being felt by all these blindfolded people. WEF is, we are the people that know WEF as well as anybody. Of our members, you know, we're the ones that put in the most effort. So in theory, we should know WEF the best. And yet none of us really knows WEF. We each know pieces of it based on our experience and the parts of WEF that we've interacted with. So whether one is a delegate, you know, you bring a certain perspective to the table that way. People who are active in our technical committees have a slightly different experience and perspective on WEF. Certainly, like a utility leader might view WEF even more differently. They're looking for maybe networking opportunities to bring resources to their staff. Exhibitors have yet a different experience in terms of what they're looking for and what they bring to the table. Certainly young professionals, you know, and then we have to add in there WEF staff. They have a very different perspective of the organization, see it entirely differently, and they live and breathe it in a different way than probably most of us. Then I also think about our partners on the outside. They're looking for something different with WEF. They have a different set of experiences. And these and many more all together, they're all true, they're all real, and together they make up this animal that we know and love as WEF. But however much time we put into it, we will never truly know the entire thing. And I think that's important for us to kind of keep in perspective as we work with each other, and certainly as we work into this strategic plan and try to envision WEF's future. But anyway, you sort of get that picture that none of us knows the organization perfectly. And so next slide, please. And then there's the board. And this is this year's board. This is a picture taken from the rooftop of the Fauché Tower in Minneapolis, where we were finally able to meet in person at the end of July. And it was a really nice opportunity to get this board together for the first time. And you know, the board is made up of 11 volunteers and the executive director. And each of us brings our own perspective. None of us knows the organization fully, but the goal is that collectively we are getting to as full a perspective of WEF as is practical. And it is our job to collectively kind of bring our experiences, yet set them aside when it comes to decision making and try to think in you know, what is best for the organization. And that can be hard at times. And I can honestly say that each board member works, well, first of all, they work really hard. I mean, what they bring to the table, the preparedness, the work that they put in between meetings, their committee meetings, and in interacting with lots of other pieces of WEF is really humbling. Trust me when I say that this is a group of people that knows how to speak their minds, but also knows how to listen and how to come to consensus, even on some really, really difficult issues. And that it's those difficult and challenging moments that really speak to who they are, who we are together. And I've been so honored to have this opportunity to work with each and every one of them. But we have to remember that as much as we, the board, and then I include all volunteers really in this, that as much as we love WEF, as much as we put our effort, as much effort as we put into it, Walt runs the organization. And so next slide. And, you know, we have, this is sort of a generalized organizational chart of the staff. And on any given week, there's somewhere between like 90 and 100 staff. Obviously, it bumps up and down depending on who's coming and going. And I'll point out that there's only one of those staff members that reports to the board. Everybody else feeds up through Walt. And so even though, and this can get a little confusing for any of us volunteers, we work closely with staff. They are oftentimes our colleagues on technical committees. Sometimes they are supporting a committee that we work on. We may have a business relationship with them with a company that exhibits at WEFTEC or something like that. But those, we are not their supervisors, and we have to be really careful about how that relationship works. I think that's something that the board in recent years has made some good evolution on, and hopefully I can say that about volunteers as a whole. And so while there isn't a bright line between what staff do and what volunteers and volunteer board members do, yet we're going to try to divide up the reporting out between, I'm going to share with you some things that from a volunteer perspective or from a board member's perspective that we've been working on this past year, and Walt's going to kind of do something similar but from a staff perspective. So next slide. There. And so here are just some highlights from my perspective of what the board has been working on over this past year. And the first and foremost is this new strategic planning process. And this was really kind of the top priority of the board going into, at least for new things, going into the this fiscal year. And we decided, our first meeting really in, I guess it would have been in November of last year, this trying to launch a new strategic planning process rose to the top. And then in the subsequent months, we continued to evaluate that and dig into it a little bit, and made the decision that this was really a time to go big or go home. And that this was not a time for us to make incremental changes in our current strategic plan, which has served us well for roughly a decade. The world is changing, WEF is changing, WEF's membership is changing, and we want it to continue to change. We'll get into our next piece there. And so we need a strategic plan that can really help us stay ahead of all those changes and be the thriving, vibrant organization that we all want it to be, even though we may see it from a different perspective and have slightly different ideas about what that means. But that's where the magic happens with the strategic plan. So anyways, Jamie's going to go into some more specifics about that in his later presentation, but that has certainly, I would say, been the highlight of one of the key outcomes from this past year. Another one I certainly want to highlight is the work of diversity, equity, and inclusion, building on previous year's work. This year was the first year that the board had a subcommittee of the governance committee, but it really functioned in a pretty standalone way, made up of a wide swath of WEF members, including some board members, working closely with the Silverine Group, our very able consultant in this process. And I've been so pleased with the outcomes of this work that is not only made good progress and made an impact this year, but the strategy that they've laid out for the years ahead is really putting us, I think, in very good stead for continued evolution and progress in this area. One of the priorities that I made as board president was, as we were setting up our task forces and committees for the year, to do our best to make sure that those committees were themselves reflective of the diversity that we want to see in the organization moving forward. And I think that we can do a lot better in years to come, but each year we need to build on that work. So anyways, I've been very, very thankful. And Donnell Duncan, one of the co-chairs, is here with us today. And Donnell, thank you to you and to everybody on that committee for the work that you've done. Something sort of an outgrowth from that DEI work is the establishment of a code of conduct and a sort of parallel non-harassment policy that feeds into that code of conduct. This is something, it's one of those things like an emergency room. We hope that we never need to use it, but it's there for us, and it's comforting to know that it's there and that there's some policies to go along with that. And one of the nice things coming out of this, both the DEI work and the code of conduct, is that we're seeing that many of our MAs are starting to look to that work for how they can incorporate it into their own policies and activities. I think that's wonderful. Another thing that this year has certainly required, but it was something that we were on track to do anyway, is reimagining Weftec. Last year, of course, was fully virtual. That's the way it had to happen because none of us could meet in person. But as we looked forward, not even stepping back from that, before the pandemic happened, we already knew that we needed Weftec to evolve. And we had been laying the groundwork. We were changing the role of the Weftec Advisory Committee. We were getting outside expertise on some of the trends in the meeting industry. And then this past year, in a newly configured, and I think very exciting Weftec Advisory Committee that really kind of put new energy into it under the leadership of Matt Winkleman. They really did yeoman's work in terms of trying to gather input from so many different stakeholders that are involved in Weftec and start thinking about how we can evolve that event so that it continues to provide the wonderful programming and the wonderful exhibit opportunities and interaction with exhibitors that we've come to know and love, but also provide a more intentional set of opportunities for really connecting with fellow attendees. And so you'll see in this year's Weftec some opportunities that kind of riff off of some of the things that we did in the Weftec Connect last year. These learning exchanges, roundtable events, focus groups, meetups, all these kinds of things to really try to enhance that attendee experience so they can take away new engagements and new relationships that you really would be hard to replicate online. Now, the other two parts of Weftec, this kind of reimagined Weftec we're experimenting with, in addition to Weftec the way we've known and love it, but with these kind of new interaction opportunities, there will be a Weftec Live. It's sort of like a highlights channel that's going on at the same time that anybody can attend, whether they're registered for Weftec but are back in their hotel room between things, or whether they weren't able to travel to Weftec at all. And then the third piece of the Weftec will be in the middle of November, Weftec Online, and that is an opportunity for either for people who didn't come to Weftec and they want to register to still be able to get a lot of that programming, as well as some of the online learning exchanges and the interactive conversations that we will have at Weftec, the in-person Weftec. It's also an opportunity for those of us that come to Weftec in Chicago to be able to go back and see some of the programming that we couldn't get to, because I don't know about you, but I can never get to very many sessions, certainly not the number that I want to. So this will be an opportunity that I'm looking forward to be able to go back and get some of that I missed when I was there in person. And then along with this sort of reimagining Weftec, the push to year-round programming. And what I mean by this is, of course, we've always had our specialty conferences around the year. But what I'm really thinking about is our now packaging things online through the Learning Center that allows people to access some of our programming no matter where they are, no matter when they are, and they can get modules that are aligned with some of the things that they need. And so I'm excited about how that will continue to grow over the coming years. A few other things I just want to highlight. Certainly the member engagement transformation effort. This is a critical thing that's been going on for a few years and has picked up momentum this year. It's imperative that we find ways to onboard members, to help them engage in small ways and large ways, and in ways that allow for kind of more organic interaction and more organic, allow them to, when new ideas come about. Small Communities Task Force, that came out of the HOD, what I think we called it a roundtable last, thank you, Nikita, last January. And that committee, that task force continues to work, and we'll be bringing recommendations to the board shortly, probably later this fall. And that has a number of HOD members on it, and clearly touched, I don't want to say touched a nerve, but touched some sort of an energetic line that was going through, but hadn't quite been grounded. There's clearly a lot of interest there. We just need to get these recommendations to the board and see how that we carry forward with that. The board made some very definite recommendations regarding programmatic investments, both in terms of things to emphasize and put new investment in, and things to stop doing. The biosolids, the board allocated new, allocated resources to the biosolids. We hiring 2 biosolids people, a director and a second person in that program, and we're seeing great things come out of that. And then also supported Walt in the strategic decision to sell the National Green Infrastructure Certification Program, with this sort of decision that, okay, so we tried certification, but that's, green infrastructure is really important to us, but certification isn't our bag. And we were able to hand it off to a better home, if you will, and meanwhile solidifying WEF's bottom line in doing that. And I think that's a pretty significant thing. And then finally, in the sort of more like housekeeping things, there's a lot of things that the board has to do in terms of housekeeping. And I would say that this year we have been able to become a bit more systematic in our self-reflection, and both in terms of how the board is working, but also in terms of our primary role in overseeing the executive director. We've had a policy in place for some years, and but it's been taken a while to kind of get it into our muscle memory for how we evaluate an executive director, partly, and that's partly because as we changed executive directors, just as we were starting to land this new policy, but I think that makes for a stronger organization overall when we have a healthy way of doing that. And then finally, hiring new legal counsel. We had the same legal counsel forever and ever and ever, and with Walt's leadership and the board's support, we made it a priority to find new legal counsel this year, and I think we are really happy with who we've hired. So with that, those are a couple of the highlights that kind of zoom through. And with that, I want to, Kelsey, you can take those slides down, and let's hand it over to Keith for a financial update.
Yeah, thanks, Lynn. That was very informative. It's interesting to see kind of where we've been through the year. And as we kind of pull back the curtain, one of the things that Nikita and Steven asked me to do was maybe not concentrate so much on this past year, but where we're going next year. And, you know, I've got Penny and Karen listed here because I just want to emphasize the importance that WEF staff really has in our finances as well. We really operate as a team. They're in kind of constant communication with me and other board members, and especially our finance committee. And I think that's really been beneficial to us, especially over this last year and a half or so with everything that's been going on. So really appreciate their work. Next slide, Kelsey. So even though this is maybe about money, it's really also about the programs, and I'll talk about that a little bit more. You can go ahead and list the other items here, Kelsey. Yeah, thank you. So just to kind of highlight a couple things from this past year, back in February, we had an online meeting with your HOD Finance Committee or Budget Committee, with the CLC leadership, and with our WEF Finance Committee, to really go over the budget from last year, the process that we were doing, and kind of take a look to make sure that we're online and in parallel with our current strategic plan. And that was a really good effort. I especially want to thank you, or two HOD members that have served on the Finance Committee this year, Brian Shannon from Alabama and Tom Galazinski from Arizona. Tom, I'm getting closer on your last name. Hopefully in another year here, I'll have that pronunciation down, but really appreciate their effort. It's really important that we get the delegates' input, not only on the budget, but the finances that we've got going, and so that we can get that keep that communication open. A couple things that really we've been financing this AMS program through Fontiva, who is our consultant, for a number of years now, and that was finally launched this year. We had a kind of a rough start from the MA portal side of things. As you might know, we ended up having to pull that out and turning that back to them and having them redesign and reprogram some of that. But then here in mid-February, that was relaunched again for the MA portal. So we're happy that that's out there. Please get us any feedback on that, because it should be an important tool for the MAs, and we're pleased that we have that now, and it should be a great communication tool. As Lynn mentioned, we've had a lot going on in the DE&I effort over the last several years, especially in the member and staff area. We'd like to push that out more into the MA area going forward, but we'll talk about that here in a minute. Lynn mentioned we approved some additional staffing throughout the year, and we actually had some pretty significant savings through the sale of the NGICP program that she mentioned. So that was great. Another thing that staff has really been tuned in on is some of the benefits that we can get. We applied and received a PPP loan both in the last 2 years, and our first loan was forgiven this past year, and so that's on the books. We're also looking at an employee retention credit that we can apply towards our last year's, and that's a pretty significant cash savings that can come through the government to WEF to help benefit our programs. And that was made available to us through our audit firm that made us aware of that, and it's kind of an ongoing program that we're pursuing currently. As of course you know, we had an online WEFTech Connect last year. We were a little unsure how to budget for that, but we did exceed our revenue budgets for that last year. And then more importantly, just here last month, we received word that our pretty large insurance proceeds came in from last year's WEFTech to kind of mitigate any potential loss we would have had. So that was a significant event for us. It a lot of time commitment from not only our WEF financial staff, but also Stephanie Jones and the staff in the convention area spent a lot of time for this, and So really, because of our insurance proceeds that we had last year, because of some of the benefit from the PPP loan and what we're going to receive on the employee retention credit, and also some major growth that we've had in our investments. Over the last 3 or 4 years, we changed our policy for our reserves, and we've invested those, and we've had some good growth there. And so because of especially those 3 areas and the work of staff, we came in much better than we anticipated for last year, even though we were entered the year with much trepidation going forward. So go ahead, Kelsey, to the next one. So again, looking forward more towards FY22, it may not be quite as rosy a picture as it was in 21 from a financial standpoint. But we want to make sure that we're funding the programs that are needed. And so that's the thing that I kind of want to concentrate here a little bit. It's not just the finances, but it's making sure that we're providing the programs that our membership, that our HOD and the MAs are interested in. And that's the importance of having your budget committee chair and vice chair on our finance committee. A couple things that Lynn mentioned going forward, we've got this big initiative for updating our strategic plan. We'll be funding that significantly through this next year. We've got continued investment in our DE&I, not just internally, but through our consultant, so that we can hopefully spread that out more into the MAs and into other areas. So please look for that. We're funding an update to the WEF website this year. Hopefully that'll be much cleaner and more accessible to everyone. And the Finance Committee recommended and the board approved restarting the MA grant program again for next year. So we've got 100,000 committed to that. We've put that into the kind of targeted your budget committee to determine how that money is allocated throughout the year. So we're very happy that we can do that again for this next year here. One of the things, though, to consider is that we're continuing to fund these things, but we need to make sure that we're doing it in the right manner. Next slide, Kelsey. Just wanted to comment to you again on how efficiently I think WEF is run. We compare ourselves to other nonprofits to make sure that we're in line, and we've got a very low overhead and very little debt compared to other programs out there, and are really maintaining a well-run operation. Next slide. So I'm not going to talk about these, just wanted to highlight again the programs that we're doing. One, that we're supporting the DE&I effort. Walt might talk about it, but he's in a CEO action group for this as well. Next slide. Another area is our support for our MAs. We talked about the grant program, but there's a number of other things out there. Your WEF maxes are going to be a little bit different this year as well, but we want to make sure that we keep that emphasis down to the MAs, kind of the bread and butter of our organization. Next slide. And then, of course, we need to support our conferences and our educational events, really something that WEF has been known for. Hope to see you all in a week and a half in Chicago. We're hopefully on track to have a great attendance there. Obviously, has a big impact on our budget, but also in our networking and the educational levels that we have. And as Lynn talked about, the WEF 365 is really kind of our efforts to provide this education fully throughout the year, not just at one-time events. Next slide. So looking ahead, we have budgeted all of our conferences as being in person this year. And hopefully that will be the case. We do have a utility manager conference coming up in the first of the year, right there. And we're funding the strategic plan, which has already started and is underway. One thing you might not be aware of, but this year is the 50th anniversary of the Clean Water Act. That really started a lot of efforts here in the US, especially with EPA and the grant program and things. So WEF staff is going to be working on some strategic communication activities throughout the year, kind of be looking for those. We provided some funding for those. May even be some video games that apply towards the water sector, because we don't want to just address our membership alone. We want to try to draw more people into the water sector and the public in general. And so that's kind of the efforts there. And then our continued investment in our online learning, not just internal staffing, but some consultant help that we can use to help get that word out. So in this effort going forward, we are looking or anticipating a deficit spending for this year. We felt that it was important that we continue to provide the programs that are needed. And so we are planning to dip into our reserves. They have been built up over the last several years so that in a case like we have now, we can continue those services. So it's important that we obviously use those the best we can and efficiently as we can. But we do want to make sure that to understand that we're on, sound financial standing right now, and that we can do that to provide services going forward. Just want to also add that our investments, we've set up an investment policy. So that's been good. That's allowed us to kind of increase some of our programs that we have out there. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Lynn, and I'm certainly open to questions later if you need to.
And actually, I was just going to so I received a question directly about who purchased the NGICP program. So I just wanted to share that with the group, because I think there might be other people with the same question.
Yeah, thank you, Kelsey. And I'm hoping that I'm banging my head to remember their name, but Walt, I presume, will be on the tip of his tongue and can include that in his remarks. So let me hand it over to Walt and hand that question over to you as well.
Oh no, I may be in trouble, Lynn, and not remembering off the top of my head. Maybe Barry or somebody else is on the call today.
I don't think he is. I just remember that their business is certifications. That's what they do. And they were very excited to, and we are continuing to be a partner with them, but we're just not running. Oh, Claudio, maybe you can weigh in.
Yes, I can help. EnviroCert is an organization that is running this. It's one of their flagship programs now. They actually are in the process of getting re-upped by their ANSI standard. So they will be able to continue the high level of service that the NGICP provides. They have a number of other certifications. They are in the certification business, both in the US and abroad. And they have intentions to extend the NGICP internationally as well. And they're already producing new materials, and they're in partnership with us to do that. Some of the contents that are going to go into the training is going to come from WEF. And also some potential royalties down the line may come to WEF as well, including income from training aspects of it, which is really what we are all about. So it has found a great home in its process of growing.
Thank you, Claudio. I'm going to turn over to Walt. We are running a little bit behind, but I think we'll probably be able to make up for that time in the rest of it. So I'm not too worried. I think this is important. Walt, it's over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Lynn. Yeah, Keith and you gave so much good information. I can be really short today.
Yeah, thank
But-
you. Yeah, thank you, Keith. That was wonderful.
Well, anyway, thanks everybody. You know, today's really the kickoff of WEFTech with this meeting, right? And we've also had several internal ones today that have really gotten the staff going on WEFTech already. So it's like a 2-week process, 3-week process for WEFTech. And the board will be meeting next Thursday. That's only a week away. So the excitement and also the anxiety is really increasing. But I'm very, very pleased how the event's setting up this year and the great experience that I expect everybody to have while in Chicago. So, I know everybody's always interested in our registration numbers. So I just want to let everybody know that we're pretty much looking at a WEFTech 21 that's about 50% of the size of a pre-pandemic WEFTech. And I know you hear 50%, but that's a really, really big event, right? It is the first chance that we're going to have to come together as the water community as a whole. And I know everybody's going to really have a great experience. We're going to have 10,000 people there. We have hundreds of exhibitors in the exhibit hall. We have hundreds of education opportunities, much more collaborative learning this year, some really great networking opportunities despite some of the restrictions that the pandemic puts in front of us. But everyone who's going to be there is going to really have a great time and come away with a lot of value. And then as Lynn mentioned, if you can't make it to Chicago this year, please tune into WEFTech Live during the event. And then, if you need to get your professional development hours, continuing education, sign up for WEFTech online in November. So I'll get back to kind of the staff perspective on what's going on here. At the highest level, what we do and what's a priority, it's really about pursuing the WEF mission and making sure that we're providing value for all our members and customers who make up our amazing community of water professionals. As Lynn mentioned, my role is to work with the board to help establish the organization's mission, goals, strategies. I think it's been a really good self-transformation by the board that began probably, I know it began prior to my arrival, to really understand their role in leading and governing the organization on behalf of the membership and not, spending as much time with the management of the organization. Managing has its challenges, but sometimes that can be easier. It's easier to get your arms around that than actually blue skying and leading and trying to see where the industry in the future is going. That's pretty tough. So the priorities coming from the board, they represent input from a lot of members and diverse interests. I think it's really important to remember that WEF's not a monarchy. As much as I love working with Lynn, it's not about following the year-to-year variations of the WEF presidents, but it's more, a representative government via the input of the House, of the CLC, the board. So my biggest function is really to take those board priorities and ensure that we have the organizational structure, the resource allocation, and the staff to effectively contribute to achieving those priorities with the member volunteers who are absolutely critical to achieving progress. Associations are pretty unique because the members are the owners of the company. They're the workforce in so many ways, and they're also the customer that consumes all the products. So very, very interesting dynamic. Now, Lynn mentioned at the beginning of her presentation, the elephant. I love that because WEF is just so much going on, even a lot of days, as you could see by my answer on who bought our NGICP program. It's just so hard to keep track of everybody. It really takes everybody on the whole. And then when I give a report like this, I default a lot of times to talking about an iceberg, right? Because what you're going to hear from me, and you heard from Lynn and Keith, is maybe 10% of what's going on around WEF at that visible portion of the iceberg. Meanwhile, 90% of it, we're not talking about. It's still going on. Members are working hard, contributing to things. There's certain programs we do year after year that deliver a lot of value, but because they're not new, we don't necessarily talk about them. So I want to give an apology to everyone right away on the couple of things that I'm going to talk about, because I'm probably missing 90% of the cool things that are going on with WEF. You know, both Lynn and Keith talked about strategic planning. The board began the process in this summer, and you may hear the name through, and that's the consulting firm that's working with us. Our goal is to have a new plan adopted next summer by the board, and then really be pushing it a lot at WEFTEC in 22. We're currently in the assessment phase. We're doing member and stakeholder surveys, interviews, focus groups, some market research. Some of you may already have participated in some of this. Some of you may be getting info over the next couple of months, but just keep looking for updates in all our communication channels. And, you know, just saying communications channels, it's a great way to transition to say communications right now is really, really a big priority with the board and also with staff, and a couple of different perspectives here. You know, one, I don't think any of us have experienced a time when the importance of clean water and sanitation services has been more magnified than during the current pandemic, and with the specter of climate change impacting water quality and availability. You know, this year, just imagine trying to deliver healthcare without clean water and sanitation. You know, imagine how it would feel to come home or running a manufacturing operation with no functioning water supply or sanitation services if our water workforce wasn't showing up each day during the pandemic. So the impact on our communities and the economy would be catastrophic. Also, the extreme droughts, you know, being experienced in the Western US and other parts of the world are really focusing our industry. And I think we have a great opportunity aligned with a new crop of community leaders and activists to really pitch the importance of water and talk about the critical issues we need to deal with in addressing water quality and supply. So I think it really makes an opportune time to communicate how to participate in, support, and benefit from WEF. And we want to get that member out on all our members' successes, our partners' solutions that they bring to the issues, and then also on WEF products and services to really demonstrate how WEF can make a difference in the communities we live and serve. Plus, I forget if it was Lynn or Keith, or maybe both of them said, you know, we need to make it easier to find things that are of interest to individuals as they want to interact with WEF. That's critical to us. So our 22 budget, you know, shows an increase in the resources devoted to our communication areas. We have a number of initiatives, including, you know, looking at expanding staff resources in this area, a refreshed main website. We have more material in our biosolids outreach program. We're looking at an innovative water-themed game for mobile and gaming platforms to help raise public awareness. We're exploring a second film to follow Brave Blue World. And we're looking at continuing to enhance our Water Worth It campaign and also our Work for Water online resources. And, you know, we're also looking at building better internal communications via our member engagement project, which was mentioned. We want members, you know, to have a much easier time interacting with the organization, improve the transparency of information, and let members engage, you know, when they want to find exactly what's relevant to them with ease. Lynn mentioned our desire to have year-round programming. So many people identify WEFTEC as WEF, and that's okay because it's an amazing flagship product, but we want to make sure that they know they can engage throughout the year. At the board level, we call this our WEF 365 project, but we want to provide continuous touch points, continuous value to people. We also talked about DE&I, big issue. We want to make sure that the organization, you know, is diverse, it's welcoming. We want to make sure it recognizes and celebrates our unique differences so that WEF really represents the people that are in the profession and the communities that we serve. So there is going to be a joint CLC HOD workshop on DE&I a week from Saturday in Chicago. And then you can go to the WEFTEC website to see a much wider slate of DE&I activities that are going on there. Maybe the last area that I'll touch on is public health. WEF's roots and our mission are founded on the concept of protecting public health. I think over the last year, we tried to do the best job we could with making information available to the public and our members on coronavirus issues around wastewater. We had our blue ribbon panel that was led by Dr. Art Umbel, which came out with a wonderful report that's been picked up by other organizations. We also hired a chief medical officer, Dr. Andrew Sanderson, who's been a wonderful resource, both for the blue ribbon panel, for some of our technical committees, and as a speaker to bring some of the information that our members are maybe not first line experts like the medical profession is, but to bring that perspective and really improve our own products as a result of it. Dr. Sanderson's also helped cultivate some of the new relationships we have with the CDC and some of the projects with EPA, especially around wastewater surveillance, where we have some demonstration projects that are going to be expanded over the next year, and are also continuing with us running our National Wastewater Surveillance Group for the CDC. And some of that will culminate with a conference in March of 2020 in Cincinnati, our first public health and water conference, plus wastewater surveillance summit. So a lot of things going on. I always feel like if I don't talk about each one of our committees under the CLC, I feel like I'm disrespecting so much of the work that our members are bringing to the table, all their contributions to the WEFTEC program, the magazine, our journal, all kinds of things going on. So, but I could talk all afternoon. So I think that's about all I'll get in today, Lynn. So maybe I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you so much, Walt. And at this point, I've really appreciated the input from Walt and Keith, and I got to say, I kind of like this format for doing this, as opposed to being in the big conference room with being where I can't really see the slides and all that sort of thing. So I think maybe our transition to getting more skilled at online meetings has some upsides to it as well. And I think that there are probably many more people that can come to this than if we were holding it in person. So thanks to everybody for being here. At this point, I would like to close the annual membership business meeting and hand things over to Speaker Nikita Lingenfelter to launch the House of Delegates meeting.
Yes, thank you so much, Lynn. This has been a fabulous meeting, and I agree. I love the online format. We have greater participation for those international delegates that can't always make it to WEFTEC. This is a great opportunity to hear the state of the Federation. So great job, Lynn, Walt, Keith. Thank you so much for your updates. So with that said, welcome everyone to the 2021 WEF HOD business meeting. We had a busy but amazing year. So as of right now, I am going to call this meeting to order. Kelsey, can you please share the agenda we have for everyone today? And as Kelsey is bringing up that agenda, our first action is to approve the agenda. And when we get that up, we can take a glance at it very quickly. And Kelsey, if you can unmute everyone so we can get a verbal confirmation of the approval agenda, I would like to make a motion to approve the agenda. And Steve, I was about to get to that. Thank you. So with that said, can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I so move.
Second?
Second.
Now that we have a motion on the floor, any discussion on the agenda? Hearing none, I'd like to put on a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Kelsey, can you mute everyone again, please? For those who are opposed, please. For those opposed, please raise your hand so we can get an accurate count for the meeting minutes. Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. The approval of the agenda has passed, and now we will go to the meeting minutes for October 2022 for our HOD meeting. Can I have a motion to approve those meeting minutes?
So moved.
Thank you. Second.
Second.
Thank you, Stephen. We have a motion on the floor to approve the meeting minutes. Any discussion on those minutes? I hope you're all able to review those. Hearing none, all those in favor, please unmute quickly.
Aye.
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 Thank you.
Aye.
Can you hear everybody again, please?
Aye.
Thank you so much. Any opposed, please raise your hand so we can get an accurate count. Seeing none, motion carries. Thank you, everyone. Up next, we are going to go to Jackie Gerald, the WEF Nomination Subcommittee Chair, also our immediate past president, to discuss and approve the WEF Nomination Subcommittee report.
Thank you, Nikita. I'm going to share my screen. How is everybody doing today? Okay, let's see. Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. And on behalf of the Board of Trustees and as the Nominating Subcommittee Chair, I am pleased to provide the 2021 WEF Nominating Subcommittee recommendations as considered and approved by the Board for WEF Vice President and Board of Trustees positions. I do want to take a moment to just thank the Nominating Subcommittee, and you can see the members here: Lynn Broaddus, John Troffer in his first year on the Nominating Subcommittee, Patty Kennedy, Delegate at Large, and she was in her second year, and Donnell Duncan, Delegate at Large in his first year on the Nominating Subcommittee. So thank you to all of them for their service. They did a wonderful job this year. We had a very, very competitive application pool this year, which was a wonderful problem to have. So as you'll see, the candidates that we're bringing forward are very talented and skilled and knowledgeable and just great candidates going forward. So now I will present the candidate for Vice President. Okay, so Amy R. Colleen. Amy has served on the Board of Trustees for the past 3 years. Previous to that, Amy served as the House of Delegates Speaker and past President of the Louisiana Water Environment Association. She has been actively involved on various WEF committees. Amy brings strong leadership skills and WEF wealth knowledge. She is a progressive and forward thinker, focusing on the betterment of WEF, our members, and the water sector as a whole. Amy is currently the Chief Operations Officer for Providence Engineering and Environmental Group, LLC. She brings 23 years of experience in water resources, regulation, and policy. Much of her focus has been working in the industrial and manufacturing sectors. So I would like to have a motion to confirm the acceptance of Amy R. Colleen for Vice President of the WEF Board of Trustees.
Motion to approve Amy for WEF Vice President.
Thank you, Stephen. Could I have a second?
Becky Dennis, second.
Who is that? I can't see. I'm sorry.
It was Mike Millis.
Oh, thank you, Mike. Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please state aye.
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 Thank you. Any opposed? Thank you, and congratulations to Amy. Motion carries. I'm sorry. Okay. Confirmation of our trustees, non-officer trustees. So I will start. We have 2, and they're both for 3-year terms. Our first is Janet Can. And Janet has served in several leadership roles in both the WEA of South Carolina and WEF. Janet is the current chair of the WEF Committee Leadership Council and serves on the Board Strategic Advisory Committee. She previously served as WEF Speaker of the House, a WEF Community Practice Director, and President of Water Environment of South Carolina. Janet has over 35 years of experience in the water sector and brings extensive leadership skills. Utility knowledge is also a huge knowledge area for Janet and is known for her strong spirit of collaboration. Janet is currently employed with Spartanburg Water as their asset engineering manager. She is a licensed professional engineer and holds a D biological operator certificate in South Carolina. So I'd like a motion to confirm Janet Hurley Can as a trustee for the WEF Board of Trustees.
So moved.
Thank you, Jeremy. Second.
Second. Becky Dennis, second.
Thank you, Becky. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations, Janet. Okay, second trustee is Dr. Diego Rosso. Diego is currently serving as the chair of the WEF Program Committee. With his leadership, the committee developed the first and very successful virtual WEFTech Connect. Diego's innovative spirit has inspired innovation approaches to deliver technical content and programming at WEFTech. Diego was actively involved in the Municipal Wastewater Treatment Committee, the Academic Engagement Task Force, and chaired the Knowledge Development Forum for Intelligent Water. He has represented WEF abroad in both South America and Europe, sharing his technical expertise and utilizing his multilingual skills. Diego is the director of the Water Energy Nexus Center, leads the Environmental Process Laboratory, and is a professor of civil environmental engineering and biomolecular and chemical engineering for the University of California, Irvine. I'd like to entertain a motion for the confirmation of Dr. Diego Rosso as a trustee for the WEF Board of Trustees.
So moved.
Thank you, Scott. Second,
Second.
who seconded? I'm sorry.
Ellen Furcadic.
Thank you, thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Any discussion? Motion carries. Congratulations, Diego. And thank you. I'm pleased to submit that report to the House of Delegates and to confirm these candidates. Please give them a round of applause. You can do that with your virtual hands or however. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jackie. We have such an amazing round of candidates this year. So pleased to see the direction of the Board of Trustees. So thank you. Congratulations, both of you. Next, we have our HOD Nominations Committee report recommendation by Tim Ware. And I just have to say that our committees this year for the House of Delegates have been absolutely amazing. And you all made my job easy and Steven's job easy. So we thank you so much, Tim, and all the rest of the chairs. So with that said, Tim, off to you.
All right. I was going to say, Kelsey, can you pull up the slides? But you're already working on it. So if you can go ahead and go to the next slide for me, please. I'd like to start by thanking the nominating committee that served with me this year. It was a fantastic group of individuals. We had a great time. Sue Sullivan, Patty Kennedy, Paul Moran, Jeremy Bashirs, Dave Galbraith. You guys made this job easy. We definitely looked at it from a different perspective, and I really appreciate kind of all the time and effort and energy you put into this, even down to trying to make a video to get more people to put in their applications. So thank you again, and it was really a pleasure to work with each one of you. Next slide, please. So just a couple quick things about the nominating committee that we did this year. We did update the DAL application. As such, we got a great pool of candidates, and I'm be pleased to present those to you shortly. We're looking to diversify kind of what Lynn and Walt talked about, how the House is done. Looking for other groups to represent, and so we made that adjustment. We did sunset the public outreach committee, so there will not be nominations for that. One thing I will mention, because I had the whole group here, is that there was a somewhat decrease in the number of committee applications. So I would highly encourage everyone, as we get around to, say, May, June of next year, you start thinking about it. We really need to get folks to sign up for these committees and put in your application, and make sure that returning members, if you want to be a part of it, if you're going to be a chair, that you absolutely put your application in there. So with that being said, if we can go to the next slide, we'll start running through some of the nominations. Just out of a point of order, because I'm a little new at this part of it, do we need to do each separately, Nikita, as far as the delegates, the speaker, and the rest of the committees, or do we do it all as one?
Yeah,
I think we can do it all as one. Kelsey, can you confirm?
I would recommend doing it separately.
Okay. Then we'll start with the delegates at large. We had great candidates put forth this year, and we would like to recommend from the committee that Jeffrey Berlin, Amanda Sheeposh, Jaime Lopez, and Mark Poling be selected as the incoming delegates at large for 3-year terms.
So moved.
Thank you, Mike.
I'll second that, Tim.
Thank you, Nikita. Is there any discussion or questions with regards to our candidates? All right, hearing nothing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
All right, the ayes have it. Congratulations to our new delegates at large. We look forward to seeing what you guys do over the next 3 years within that position. Next, I would like to present our nominee for Speaker-elect. For those that have worked on the DE&I committee, you definitely know him and have seen him in action both at the board level and within the House. We would like to recommend Donnell Duncan be selected as the next Speaker-elect to serve in 2021, 2022.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion, comments, or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, hearing none, I would like to congratulate Donnell Duncan for being selected as the next Speaker-elect. I look forward to what you and Steven get to work on over the next year. I think it's going to be a great team to work for. I'd also like to mention our nomination for the WEF Nominating Subcommittee. We received several applications for this, and we felt that Debbie Lewis would be a great addition to this team. And so I would like to request approval to nominate Debbie Lewis to fill this role.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion or comments? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so moved. Congratulations, Debbie. You definitely win the outfit of the day as well, but we're very happy to have you in this role. So moving on to the committees, if we can go to the next slide. For the budget committee, this year, we would like to recommend that Tom Galashevsky continue within the budget committee and stay on as chair. Additionally, on the budget committee, we would like to recommend that Casey Gish, Scott Foley, Alexandria Kendrick, Matthew Formica, and Peter Garvey are selected as the budget committee.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussions or questions? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, any opposed? The ayes have it. Moving on to the steering committee. For this, the next year's steering committee, we would like to recommend Michael Sweeney, Scott Arrett, Christopher Schmidt, Christy Steiner, and Christine Hilditch to be to run the next steering committee.
So
May I
moved.
get a motion?
So moved. Second.
Moved in second. Is there any discussion or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Congratulations to the new steering committee. Moving right along to the next slide. All right, for the WEF Max committee, which we expect great things because hopefully we get to start seeing everybody in person again. For 2021, 2022, we would like to recommend Stephanie Farrell as chair for the WEF Max committee. Working with Stephanie will be Douglas Pike, Dave Galbraith, Jeffrey Berlin, and Kevin Wood. Can I get a motion to approve, please?
So moved.
Can I get a second? Thank you. Any discussions or questions with regards to the WEF Max committee? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Congratulations to the new WEF Max committee. And last but certainly not least is the nominating committee. Going forward for this year, we'd like to recommend that Patty Kennedy be chair of the nominating committee, and working with Patty, James Barsanti, Leanne Scott, Jeremy Brashears, Raymond Vernette, and Amanda Sheeposh. Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
A second. Thank you. Any discussions or questions? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
Any opposed? Easy peasy, I like it. Ayes have it. Congratulations to the new nominating committee, and Patty, I gladly pass the gavel over to you at WEFTEC. So that was all that we have from the nominating committee. Was there any questions or anything else, Nikita?
Nothing. Any questions for Tim? Thank
All right.
you so much.
Yep,
Thank you,
turn the
Tim.
show back over to you. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, thank you. So next year is going to be amazing, as you can all see. We have a great group of people and can't wait for you all to get started on that. As you noticed on the agenda, we're not having work group reports out this meeting. That will be done in person at WEFTEC next Saturday. And those will be great report outs. So work groups have done just so much this year and just too much to fit in one meeting. So you all get that live and in person next Saturday. So with that being said, we have the committee report out now. And so we will move to Mike Milius with the WEF Max committee.
Thank you very much, Nikita. I know, Kelsey, I think you're pulling those up for us. It'd be great. Or did you want me to share my screen? Oh, you got it. Well, thank you very much for allowing us the opportunity to talk about the 2021 WEF Max and our committee report. If you want to move to the next slide, Kelsey. Committee members included Stephanie Farrell, Peter Garvey, Jeff Berlin, and Kevin Wood. I definitely want to thank them for their associated work on this. Again, we had to continue to pivot as we're moving through the WEF Max piece of this, and definitely all the work that was done at the WEF level with Diane and other members of the staff. So overall, I want to thank this group very much. Moving on, talking a little bit about the 2021 WEF Max, there was a long list of ideas in different topics, and we were able to boil those down to really 4 of them. Ironically, the top one is just definitely become one of the most pressing in the aspect of trying to make our conferences virtual and how to make the most of it. Operator training continued to be a large topic that had a lot of momentum behind it, along with the MA engagement and recruiting of members. So those were the topics for 2021. With that said, we had a long list and we narrowed it down to those. Moving on, again, like we've discussed, everything was held virtually this year. The nice thing about the virtual has been mentioned repeatedly is the aspect of the opportunity for a lot more people to attend those events. We had a total of 246 attend the 4 events. Definitely, we had great discussion. That is the breakdown of it. We definitely want to thank the host. They did a great job of being able to pull these off virtually. Definitely had a lot of work on their side, along with the WEF Max committee. So we really had a great program in our eyes. And we definitely had some great ideas that they had in regards to networking after the events. There was some very creative people that were involved with those networking events. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Stephanie in regards to the preview of 2022.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Stephanie Farrell, and I just wanted to say thank you to Mike in particular and Diane for their assistance in getting the 2021 WEF Max lined up and being so successful. I'm excited to reiterate who our committee members are for 2022 WEF Max. Again, I'll be serving as the chair. And recently as last week, Jeff Berlin agreed to serve with me as vice chair. And then we have Douglas Pike, Dave Galbraith, and Kevin Wood as committee members for 2022. And then the events that will be scheduled, are scheduled, include the Hawaii WEF Max will be on April the 20th through the 22nd. WA of South Carolina will host for May 11th through the 13th. And lastly, not leastly, is North Dakota on June 1st through the 3rd. And then as we look into the future, we have some WEF Max lined up for 2023 and on into 2027 as they're presented there on your screen. And we'll look forward to how those will look in the future as we work through the process of the WEF Max Reimagine. And you will be able to hear more about that upcoming at WEFTEC in Chicago. So just want to reiterate how much we appreciate the host working with the WEF Max committee and making these events so successful. We look forward to 2022 being a great year for us with WEF Max. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Stephanie and Mike. Next, we will move to the budget committee report out. And Tom, I'm not sure if you're giving that or.
Hey, it's Brian. I'll be giving the report out today. Tom certainly helped with it, but I drew the short straw, I guess, and I'll be doing the talking today. So Kelsey, if you'll bring, thank you. So the budget committee this year was a little bit different than it was in the past due to the basically the stoppage of the cessation of the pilot MA grant program, but we did actively have meetings throughout the year and worked on some good stuff. So I do want to thank Tom Galjewski and the rest of our work group committee, who I have not listed here, but I will go on and say them: Keith Hobson, Steve Drangsholt, Kelsey Hurst, Penny Young, Karen Powderly, Nikita Lingenfelter, Jeff Baldwin, Chris Schmidt, Dan Slagle, Christy Steiner. And so that was our group throughout the year. Next slide, Kelsey. So I thought it was important to state the budget committee activities support strategic plan critical objective number 5 and its associated strategic goals. Effectively operate a sustainable business that supports our mission and enables WEF to seize new opportunities in the emerging water sector. Okay. So what we do this year, we monitored the MA progress of FY19 and FY20 grants. We conducted an MA survey to determine priorities for WEF's budget allocation. Tom and I participated in the mid-year budget process development meeting with the Finance Committee and participated in the WEF Finance Committee throughout the year, in addition to participating in the WEF Audit Committee, which was a little bit more of those duties were increased this year because of the selection of a new audit committee for WEF and the interviews and the evaluations of the firms who submitted. Okay. So what's going on with the pilot MA grant program? To date, approximately $160,000 has been awarded, and those were awarded in FY19 and FY20. As you may know, the pilot MA grant program was suspended halfway through the mid-year in FY 2020, so we did not give out all the money. We gave out about $60,000 that year of the $100,000 that had been allocated. That was in just an abundance of caution and fiscal responsibility, I think, to halt it in the middle of 2020. Additionally, we did not award any new grants in 2021 through a sense of that same fiscal responsibility and really a shifting of of those budgeted funds to the COVID-19 MA relief program. So I think it's important to also note that the pandemic did slow the progress with some of the recipients. We continue to get progress reports quarterly, and we reviewed those just to make sure that the monies that WEF allocated to these MAs were being used as they had intended and being used in a good way that benefited not only the MAs, but not only that specific MA, but all the MAs, hopefully in the future. Okay. A little bit more and some great news that we were real happy to see the budgeted funds of $100,000 have been approved for FY 2022, which is fantastic. So please let your MA know if this program is back up and running, and the current grant application deadlines as they sit today will be January 21st and June 24th of 2022. And this is just a really fantastic program to be able to help your MA out with different initiatives that you want to do that maybe you don't have enough MA funding for. Okay. So we also, as part of our activities this year, did send out an MA survey, which the Budget Committee typically does, I think, every year. But it's basically to determine if MA priorities and WEF's budget and strategic plan goals and objectives line up, and to really understand better what MAs believe are important within WEF's plans and goals. We also, while we sent this out, got some input from MAs on the COVID-19 relief program and the MA grant program. And the cool thing was, and we did send this out twice, was that we got 33 responsive, probably more importantly, from 30 different MAs. And those MAs span from the large MAs to the smallest MAs. So we think we got a pretty good cross section of the MAs included in the survey. Next. And so what did the survey tell us? It told us that the top three WEF strategic goals were 3B, which was provide tools for members, member associations, utilities, and to really communicate with those MAs. Strategic goal 2D, to provide a broad, relevant spectrum of opportunities for water sector professionals to learn and share information. And 1A, which was third in this, is to increase diversity and inclusiveness in the water sector. So largely the results said that, hey, the MAs want tools, they want to communicate, they want opportunities to learn from WEF. And I think the item that tied maybe with 3 was along those same lines. So good information here for the future boards to use. What else did it tell us? The good news was, when this was sent out, I guess in April or May, that most MAs do not anticipate needing COVID-19 relief funds, which is great news. Hopefully it'll remain that way. I know for some MAs last year might not be the challenge that last fiscal year might not be the challenge that this fiscal year is. So stay tuned for more there. It also showed us that most MAs showed interest in applying for the MA grant program, which is fantastic. If WEF's going to provide the money for this program, it's good to hear that the MAs are interested in it. And I guess why wouldn't they be? It's free money. But it also told us that most of the MAs who had interest in applying for the MA grant program indicated that training and YP engagement were most typical uses of grant funds stated by MAs, which kind of went along with their responses to the WEF strategic goals, that training, engagement, communication are on the top of MA's list for things that they have going on. And I think that's it. I do want to thank Kelsey, Penny, and Karen for this year. It's been a good time, and I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Brian. You and Tom did great work as chair and vice chair of this committee. So once again, thank you so much for all your work. Up next, we have the Outreach Committee. The chair for the outreach committee, our fabulous delegate from Michigan, Pete Cavanero, is under the weather today. So Chris Enlow will be giving the update for us. Chris, I'm going to hand it off to you now.
Hi, thank you. And thank you, Kelsey, for getting that started. Our thoughts and prayers go out to Pete. Hope he gets feeling better. I'm honored to give the final report for the outreach committee. Next slide. So here are the members of the outreach committee this year. Really, Pete and Lee and Matt and Frederick did most of the heavy lifting. Thank you, Nikita and Steven and Kelsey also for all of your work as well. And thanks to all the members. Next slide. So this is our charter, was to, I'll just read it quickly. To the outreach committee shall be responsible for communicating HOD activities, progress, and work products to the HOD at large and to MA leadership. This will be accomplished by coordinating regular outreach to the WEF MA leadership to provide resources and training to MA leaders, and ensuring all work products are properly archived on the WEF website and WEFcom. Next slide. So our goals this year were to collaborate with the Residuals and Biosolids Committee and just facilitate an alignment of the RBC with the corresponding member association committees. Also to finalize the dashboard templates and present that to the HOD. We did facilitate presentations of the bylaws committee to the HOD and the Ops Challenge committee to the HOD. We also continued some of the last year's efforts, again, on the dashboard and on the other document that I'm going to show you in just a second. And then I don't believe the last one was actually a goal of the committee, but it came up through the course of the year. And so we've added that to our status of 100% complete goals. So next slide, please. So this is the member flow plan. It was developed actually in 2019-2020 by the outreach committee, and then this year we finalized that by incorporating in comments from the CLC and the Board of Trustees, and delivered that to Nikita and Steven. So next slide. And then this is the other document that the outreach committee worked on and finalized. And thank you, Christina, for your work in putting that.
Sorry, Chris,
together.
they need to go back a slide. This is Lee.
No, it's okay.
Okay. It's cute.
That was also delivered to the speaker and the speaker-elect for dissemination. So as a function of WEF, every committee is reviewed from time to time for its effectiveness and its need, and it was determined that the outreach committee was performing dual functions of many of the other committees, and that it was time to sunset the committee, and so that happened, and that is the final report for the outreach committee. So again, thank you everybody for your acknowledgements for this committee, and for all of the work that was put in by members of the committee. I'm not sure this actually was part of our presentation, but again, thank you everybody that participated. And if there are any questions, I will do my best to field those.
Thank you, Chris. Are there any questions for the outreach committee? They did a lot this year. First, for the outreach committee, they worked directly with the committee that had to ask of the HOD. And so the outreach committee took that full steam ahead and did a fabulous job with it, working with the RBC committee. So they just did amazing, amazing work. And the leadership of that with Pete and Chris and Lee and everyone in that committee, it was a phenomenal. So thank you all so much for that.
Thank you.
Any questions on the or the sunsetting of the outreach committee? We felt that because of all the duties that all the other committees do and the objectives of work groups, all the work that the outreach committee can do can be done by other committees or work groups. And if you look at the initial functions on when the outreach committee was created, those have been done and sunsetted. So it was time to sunset this committee as well. So if you have any questions on that, please let us know. And they did work themselves out of the job. Congratulations. So with that being said, before moving to the 2021-2022 HOD meeting, I wanted to make you aware that changes and edits have been made to the HOD policies and procedures. As a reminder, we use the procedures and policies as the governing documents for the HOD. And after these meetings are concluded, Kelsey will be sending you the red line version of these policies and procedures, which have been updated. And as soon as Kelsey sends that email, it will start the process for the 45-day, I'm from the state, so public notice period. And during this time, please review the changes and edits and let Kelsey, Steven, or even me know if you have any questions or comments on that. And during the next HOD meeting, which is tentatively scheduled for December, you will all be voting on these updated policies and procedures. So with that being said, I am going to adjourn this meeting and we will now move into the 2021-2022 HOD meeting. So I am going to call that meeting to order, calling to order the 2021-2022 HOD meeting. And with that, Kelsey, can you bring up the agenda for this meeting? And then I will give you all a chance to look at this agenda. I don't believe we have to vote on it, so I am going to move directly to Lynn, who will go through the confirmation of the 2021-2022 HOD speaker.
Thank you, Nikita. Just so that you guys know, for historical purposes, we had some sort of humorous back channel conversations of what is confirming the 2021-2022 speaker mean, because Steven's already been voted in, so maybe it's more just kind of a welcoming or recap. So we're not voting on anything, and but nobody seems to have much of a recollection of how we do this, Steven. So anyway, what I thought I would do is just I thought I might, as you guys all know Steven probably, at least virtually, if not in person, and I would read a little paragraph from his nominating materials. And this particular paragraph came from a supporting letter from some of the then trustees. And I thought it was a kind of a fitting letter that describes a little bit who Steve is. During his tenure as a delegate, Steven has made a difference in advancing HOD workgroup and committee activities and brings a fresh perspective to the HOD that will resonate into the future. Steven is well recognized in his profession for his extensive outreach experience centered around water quality and sustainability. He's a respected leader on the board of the Pacific Northwest Clean Water Association, having served in various roles, including treasurer and delegate. And this is the sentence I really like. He is, especially if you know Steven, you will appreciate this. He is both outspoken and a consensus builder, qualities that will serve him well as a leader. And I think that is certainly true. And Steven is a true champion for diversity, equity, and inclusion. So anyways, I think that Steven, other than your day job, that sums up your personality and your background pretty well. So with that, welcome, and we all look forward to working with you and your leadership for the coming year, and I'll hand it over to you.
Well, that's quite a surprise. So thank you, Lynn, for those comments and thoughts. And at WEFTEC, we'll have a more formal thank you to Nikita as well as outgoing speaker. But we should all give Nikita a hand. She she certainly had to take on this challenge in one of the most difficult times in WEF's history. And I would not have accepted this if Nikita hadn't been a part of it as well. And we were a true team this year and in previous years. And in August, she got a chance to come up here and visit me. And it was a really nice time for us to actually spend in person and do some work while she was speaker. And so there is a lot to celebrate for Nikita, and we will do that at WEFTEC in person with one another. So I guess my first act as speaker is to approve the agenda. So can I get a motion to approve this agenda?
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, please indicate aye.
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 Any nays? The agenda has been approved. So if you want to take that down, Kelsey, thank you. So the first item we have is work group recruitment. And one of the best parts about being speaker is that we get to work with the WEF trustees and with other leaders in the House to create some work groups. And so we have 3 this year. And in keeping with what Lynn and others have commented on, we want to continue to enhance the connection that we have between the House of Delegates, the committees, and WEF staff. And so we've intentionally created 3 work groups this year that do just that. And so after this meeting, you will receive an email from Kelsey inviting you to join one of these work groups. We'd like you to try and join before the in-person meeting at WEFTEC, if possible. And then I would like for all delegates to be a part of at least one of these work groups and an active part of each of them. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the purpose of each, but we'll also be sharing each of the work group charters with you after. The first one is water communications, which is going to be led by Leanne Scott, along with some of the some members from the Public Communications and Outreach Committee, and the WEF staff liaison will be Travis Loop. And this work group will focus on building allies that support and advocate for increased communication efforts in the water sector to create changes. The work group is going to use industry expertise from communications professionals in the water sector to share case studies that demonstrate the value of communication, methods to measure communication effectiveness, tips on how to increase budgets and staff to expand those communications efforts in their organizations. And will be a collaborative effort between the PCOC, MAs, and demonstrate WEF's commitment to the growing number of water communication professionals we have in our group. The next work group, Federal Advocacy, is a continuation of the work group that we have had this year. And thank you so much to Sue Sullivan and others who have really spearheaded this effort. The goal of this work group, again, attached to the Government Affairs Committee with 2 staff liaisons, Steve Dye and Claudio. Well, they're going to create a sustainable advocacy effort, which is required for greater engagement and understanding of the core messages needed to communicate with elected officials on legislative and regulatory issues. And this work is going to focus on enhancing communication and advocacy through WEF's Water Advocates program. Thank you, Christiana, for putting that in the chat there. Please, if you haven't already joined the Water Advocates program, you have a link, go join it. Part of their goal this year is to more than double the number of water advocates. So we need all of you to join. The last work group will be the Emerging Professionals, Emerging Leaders work group. For WEF to continue to grow, we need the engagement and advancement of new leaders within the organization. And therefore, this work group will support the organization by identifying barriers to entering leadership positions, creating pathways into new leadership roles, and developing resources that better enhance emerging professional transitions. I'm really delighted to have Casey Gish from the Pacific Northwest lead this along with leaders in the SYPC, the Students Young Professionals Committee, and staff liaisons Meg Levac and Brad Lovett. And so I hope you are all excited about these work groups. I hope you will choose to join one or more of them and be active participants in them and give to the efforts that we have this year. These are really important efforts, not just for now, but for WEF going into the future. And I was thrilled to be able to work with Jamie on creating a vision together, not just for these work groups, but for the overall theme here of water communications and creating better communications professionals and learning together. So please join a work group, and Kelsey will be sending out information after this meeting with how to do that, as well as setting up those meetings in advance of WEFTEC. Lastly, if you have an interest in being a vice chair for either the Water Communications Committee or the Emerging Leaders Work Group, please reach out to Casey and Leanne. They are going to need some help this year. And Christiana and Alexi, both are members of the Government Affairs Committee, and they're going to co-lead the Federal Advocacy one. I will turn it over to Jamie, WEF's incoming president.
Great, thanks, Steven. I just want to say I had the chance to attend the PNCWA conference a few weeks back, and Steve and I got the opportunity to sit down and talk through this next year. And you guys are going to be in better hands. I'm really excited to be working with Steven and the whole House of Delegates as we move forward. For those who don't know me, I just want to start with kind of a quick introduction. My name is Jamie Eichenberger. I'm a consultant out in Denver, and I've been out in the Colorado area my whole career. Actually got started as part of a student chapter, and kind of credit getting my first job with attending one of those events. Shortly after, I attended a YP event at a local brewery, of course, and was recruited in by past WEF President, past Speaker of the House, Jenny Hartfelder. From there, got my start with government affairs at RMWA at the local level, and then went through the chairs at RMWA, serving as president about 10 years ago now, before coming on as a delegate at large, and then ultimately serving as Speaker of the House. I put a note in one of the past meetings, but we right now have 5 past Speakers of the House on the board. So just about half of us came through MA leadership through the House of Delegates. So you'll be well represented. But in addition to that, we'll have Steven joining us at the meetings to make sure that all of our old knowledge and priorities aren't getting in the way of today. But I just want to say that I am just humbled and very excited to be able to serve in this role as president over the next year. On the next slide, I just wanted to talk a little bit about these last couple of years that we've all had to survive and some of the disruption that came out of it. We've all seen the changes in how we work, how we interact with our friends and our family, how we, in some cases, just get through the day. It's been incredibly challenging for us over the last 2 years. But I think this disruption's also brought forward a lot of opportunities. It's easy for us to get stuck in our ways and do things because we've always done them that way. And we were really forced out of that comfort zone in the last 2 years. We're able to keep the things that worked well, really innovate a bit and come up with new ways of doing things that we've done before. And I think most importantly, let go of some of the, maybe for lack of a better word, baggage that we've been carrying around for a long time within our organizations and everything, and focus on what really matters. And while disruption, I think, is often seen as negative, I see it as a really positive force and something that will help drive us into the future, make sure we continue to be successful over the next 10 years as we have been over the last 10. So on the next slide, I did want to hit on a handful of priorities over the next year. You've heard about some of these already from Walt and Lynn and others, but strategic planning, I'll go into some more detail about that here in a minute, but our continued commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion, some of the work that the Committee Leadership Council is doing on member engagement and how that's going to transform as we move forward, and then communications and outreach. And this was one when Steven first reached out to me this year and talked through his work groups, all of these have an underlying theme about how we communicate as an industry, as an organization. And I think that's incredibly important. So touching on strategic planning, on the next slide here, we show just kind of an outline of what we're doing. So one of the things that was a little shocking when we dug into it is that our last strategic plan was done 10 years ago. We've had a couple of updates, most notably in 2018, where we added diversity, equity, and inclusion, but those have been relatively minor updates since that time. So we're looking for really a bold new vision for the organization as we move forward. As Lynn mentioned, we've engaged with a consultant that specializes in this. They came up with a really unique and really bold approach for how we do this. So we've started the assessment phase kind of through this last summer. We've been looking at a lot of data, looking at some survey results from the past and all that. And now we're transitioning into this envision phase, where we really start reviewing our mission and vision and looking for that North Star for the organization. As part of that, there's going to be a ton of outreach activities to go through. Some surveys out to our membership, but also some focus groups that will be occurring at WEFTec. I believe you all will get the opportunity to hear through our consultant on their plan in greater detail, but this is an area where we want to hear from all of our diverse group of stakeholders. While the board is serving as the strategic planning committee, we know we need to get input from all of you, from our MAs, from our exhibitors and other partners to make sure that we're looking at this from a 360-degree view and making sure we can move forward. Once we get through that, for the first half of next year, we'll really be working on that plan, pulling together the critical objectives and strategic goals that go along with this, and then really start activating that coming out of our summer board meeting next year. So we will have a lot to share over the coming year. So stay tuned for that as it moves. But by next summer, we'll have our new plan in place, and we'll be doing a big rollout, have a lot more to talk about at WEFTec 22. On our next slide, I wanted to touch on diversity, equity, inclusion. I'll be honest, I don't know what the new strategic plan is going to look like. We're just starting to get into that envisioning phase, working through the planning next year. But one thing that's become clear from our discussions is our continued commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. Hopefully, you all know all the work WEF has been doing around this over the last couple of years. And we've made some really some great strides in this area, but we still have a lot of work to do. And in particular, working with our member associations to make sure that some of the tools and strategies we're developing at the national level are able to be implemented down at the MA level as well. So this is something we're going to continue to work on, which is incredibly important for us as water professionals to make sure we're reflecting the communities that we're serving. On our next slide, I want to talk just quickly about membership. This is one of the things that I think really came out of some of the disruption around around the pandemic and our inability to get together and interact and meet and get some of the value that we've gotten in the past. And some of the things that came out of it were there's some real barriers to our WEF members getting actively engaged with some of the committees or the House of Delegates or other things like that. And the Committee Leadership Council brought this forward and is looking at this member engagement transformation. And I am really, really excited about this. This is going to be an area where we rethink how you interact with WEF. As soon as you join, we want you to feel a part of our community and see if we can link you up with other people that work in your particular area, whether that's operations or municipal treatment design, biosolids, anything like that. You can just immediately get connected to this community, be able to share ideas, get the tools and information you need to advance your career. Being able to do this isn't necessarily in the old committee structure. There's some bureaucracy to it. It can be a healthy time commitment. We think those functions will still exist, but they'll be within this larger group, these different, and I'm probably going to use a word that will change before this all gets finished up, these different communities of practice that allow us to connect that way. So this is something we're putting some good investment and resources to make sure that you're getting the value out of your membership that you all deserve. And then finally, I want to talk about communication. And this is something that this year, this summer, I've had the opportunity to come out and meet with some of you in person. I was fortunate enough to attend the Clean Water Professionals Kentucky-Tennessee Conference, PNCWA. And one of the things that really blew me away was the number of communications professionals that I ran into. I've seen one or two here or there through the years, but I would just introduce myself to random people, kept running into folks. Ran into some people from Water PIO while I was down in Kentucky, Tennessee. I think there were 3 or 4 different groups represented there that do public communications and outreach in the water space. And then PNCWA got to learn about their partnership with Rogue Water and what they're doing around public communication. This is something we don't do well as an industry. We have historically thought that no news is good news, and have tried to fly under the radar, but we can't operate that way anymore. We really need to be out there, be proactive. We do great work, and we should be out there telling everybody how good a job that we're doing. So we need a publicist. We need someone out there really rallying for us, being a cheerleader for us as we go. So this is something that I'm very excited about. We're looking at ways that we can do better kind of internally to WEF, as well as externally on behalf of the water sector. So this is something we're going to be looking at. And personally, I want to make sure that we're providing a good home for these communications professionals as they attend our member association events, WEFTEC, other WEF activities. So those are really the key priorities here. And I know I've run out of time, but I am really looking forward to seeing everybody at WEFTEC this year. Please reach out. Let me know if you have any questions, especially as we go through this strategic planning. I want this to be a two-way street. I don't want to be talking at you. I would like to be talking with you, getting the benefit of your input, your experience, what your priorities are as we go through. I can't wait to get in touch with everybody again here and hope to see y'all in Chicago here in a couple of weeks. So thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Jamie. Really appreciate those thoughts, and looking forward to working with you this next year on all of your priorities. And please lean on the House and the leadership we have in this group to help drive those home. We're excited for that. Kelsey, would you like to bring up that last slide? So Kelsey asked me to offer a close to this meeting with a call to action. And I wanted to just preview some of the discussion we're going to have at our in-person House meeting. The theme that I would like for the House this year to be is humanity. And that means we're going to talk about the value of one another. We're going to focus on producing things for humans, because we are all humans. At least they tell us that. I want you to be you and unabashedly you this year. And so we'll talk about that a little bit more. And then show up ready to give not just to the House, but to WEF and to one another. And so with that being said, I have a challenge for you this week. Over the next week, whether it's a text or a phone call, a social media post, something generous to someone else, I'd like you to post one gratitude you have for that person, and make it personal. They can be a friend, they can be family, they can be part of WEF or a coworker. But I'd like you to take an opportunity to do that this week in preparation for WEFTEC and for our time with one another. So again, our theme this year is going to be humanity, and we're going to get back to not just talking to our computer monitors, but we're going to start talking to one another in person more. And so can't wait to see you at our House meeting on Saturday at WEFTEC. So thank you so much for your time this morning. Thank you to all the speakers and everybody who has been a part of just this incredible time together today, and can't wait to see what it's going to be like a week from now. So we will see you there. With that, I will call this meeting to close and adjourn. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second, thank you. Any discussion? All right. Enjoy your day. Oh, I guess I should vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, we'll see you all in Chicago next week. Thank you.
Thanks. Congrats, y'all.
Thanks. Great job, John. Great job,
Safe
Nikita.
travels to everyone. Be safe.